Hey everyone, this is Quad. I'll be bringing you another 1v1 replay, and this is actually gonna be a little bit different from what I normally do. This is actually a game from quite a bit ago, actually, before the last patch, and this I'm just gonna be showing you a build that this Protoss Ajun did that actually kind of blew me away, and that I really freaking like now. And I don't even know how to describe like how good it is, especially as a ladder build, just because, well, probably just it breaks the metagame completely. There's no expectation of the build at all, and what is known about it is, like, I don't know, it's just a brand new build. Some pro may have done it, and Ajun may have taken it from him, or maybe he somehow theocrafted it himself and made it up, and if so, if he did do that, I give him major props, because, okay, well, basically, I'm just going to talk about the build. I'll show you the game a little bit, but mainly I just want to sort of show you what it is so that you can do it yourself. I will highly recommend like doing this on ladder if you're a Protoss, and if you're a Zerg, possibly expect to see this more if it is indeed some pro player who's been doing it. I would assume probably from Korea, just because I don't pay attention too much to the Korea. So I will just go to this game and just say, for one thing, this wall is not part of the build. I do not know why Ajun did this. Maybe he screwed up, I don't know. But essentially what this is, like the build order is, you forge expand, and then you get 2 gate zealots with +1 ridiculously quick, and you charge the third with 3 or 5 zealots, and you just you can either kill it or you force a hell of a lot of units. And the way that, just the reason that it's so good is because the typical reaction to a forge expand is for the Zerg to take, especially on this map, a really quick third all the way over here. And like about 80% of the time they'll do that. Then the other percent of the time it'll be some sort of infestor rush, or they'll do some sort of roach all in or something else like that. So in that respect, the 2 gate zealot rush can be a little bit risky. And one thing that I will say about it is that you might say, hey, if they see the 2 gates, whatever, they must be thinking of something. They must know that the zealot rush is coming, and that they'll get ready. Well, I say not necessarily, just because I've been doing it on ladder so much, and very few people have been prepared for it at all. Simply put, because you're using the 2 gates as part of your wall, and Zergs can expect that, and also because the completely normal standard way to do the wall is to have the pylon a little bit closer. Then you have the forge, then you have a gateway, and then you put up another gateway while the first gateway is building, and then you cancel it and put a cybernetics core down. So also you do have that thing to keep in mind, where the Zergs might be thinking that the Protoss just simply forgot to do that. And I will just go back to this build right now, and I will say that the gas has actually already been taken and has already mined a little bit. So like, and also this dude's just being ridiculously risky. He takes a really like cannon, which he has the money that he should have put the cannon down already. So essentially what this is, you put down the gateway. Before you put down your cannon or the second gateway, you get your gas. So it's like a gas on 18 or 19 or so. And then as soon as the gateways start, you begin getting zealots, and there you get your forge, and you chrono boost it the entire time. Like, +1 does take a long time, but if you have 2 nexuses, and I will say that you are going to be cutting probes for this, you'll probably be a little bit behind until you start making the Zerg forcing to make units. Because the brilliant thing with this build is that it's not only the 2 gate zealot rush, there's other stuff behind it that you'll see and I'll explain in a little bit. It's just that it's constant Zerg unit production. And the other reason why the 2 gate zealot is just so good is because, simply put, Zerg will not have a roach worn down until about the 8 or 9 minute mark, because that's when they have to start worrying about 6 gate pushes or 8 gate pushes or blink stalker pushes. That sort of stuff. Like, nothing happens before then, and these zealots leave the base by 6:30. Like, I've edited the build a little bit more to my liking, where I leave the base with 5 zealots at about 6:30, and I get to the third at about 7:10 or something. And at that point, all Zerg will have to defend are Zerglings. Although I will say, in this game, I actually did choose to do this game instead of one of the games that I did that I edited to more of my liking, the build order wise, is that just because this is like, if the Zerg is defending it sort of in the properish way, I would say. And still, it's just such a great build. I really would find it hard as Zerg to defend properly, and I will go back to the build. So the core is actually delayed until these two gateways finish up. It's while the second and third zealots are building that you get the core, and then immediately as soon as the core finishes, you put down a robotics bay, and around this time you can see whatever, look at the supply and put buildings, and that's when you get your second gas. So here we go, we see the zealots here. They +1 has finished. They do go for the queen. I like to go with 5 zealots instead of the 3, and now we just have Zerglings being made. And we had the roach one go down, although none are done. And the other reason why these are so good, if for some reason there are like 5 roaches in front of you, or you see the 5 roaches coming, you can just run away. It's completely fine. And then the other thing is that as soon as robotics finishes, you get a warp prism, you chrono boost it, and also with the next 100 gas after the robotics bay, you get your Twilight Council so that you can get charge and +2 with the next gas. And for that time, you remain on just the 2 geysers. And I will say that this guy, Ajun, did not do in general the best job of producing probes. I have edited the build to my more liking just so that I can continually produce probes. So we do have a couple roaches out and some Zerglings, which just don't cut it, being that +1 zealots are amazing against it. So essentially here, now these zealots would clean up, and the Zerg would start thinking, hey, I held it off, and then they go back to making drones. But we have the warp prism that's going to be halfway across the map, which hopefully, if you're lucky, it's not going to get scouted. Like sometimes something off can happen, and you'll fly by an overlord. I actually once flew by 3 overlords directly in a row. It's like, so he does get charged with his first 200 gas, and then he should be getting +2. See, he's not perfect on his timings. He does have extra gas. So after you get the +2, that's when you're going to be getting your other 2 gases. And then after the second warp prism, this guy gets the 3rd warp prism. I don't get the 3rd warp prism. That's when you're going to start producing immortals non-stop. You don't have to chrono boost them, just keep making immortals. So now we do have the warp prism go in, lift up, and also the other great thing about it is if your zealot survived and you just ran away from the first attack, you can just pick them up, or like you run away, but you pick them up and then you elevator in, and then basically right now it's zealots with +1, double warp prism harass, and quite frankly, it's pretty good because also at this time there will be most likely no speed for roaches, and if it is speedlings, if you're just fighting in the mineral lines, Zerglings will die incredibly easy to zealots. So Zerg has to do a really good job of splitting up small amounts of roaches to either defend the zealots without speed, or they have to like just sort of rely on queens to kill warp prisms, which you can easily move away. And also if they are using roaches, you can just go into the warp prism like that and fly away, because obviously roaches don't shoot up. And so this just continues, and here's a 3rd warp prism that goes to the natural, does some stuff, and basically you're just constantly warping in zealots, because the zealots are disposable. The point of this is just to keep the Zerg going crazy, saying like, what the shit's happening, why there's so many zealots in my base, and just kill them, and that's a bit sloppy on his part. And you can always just pick up your zealots and move back, and you just go from 2 sides to keep the Zerg moving back and forth, and it just will rattle the Zerg. And so, meanwhile going on, so you will be getting your +2, I would say you can chrono boost it out a bit more, and then you also get your Templar archives after with your next 200 gas after getting these things, and while still producing constant immortals. This guy does get storm. I don't necessarily think that is the best option. I usually skip it, and you're just going to be using Templar for archons. Cause if you haven't yet grasped it, what the main point of this is to make the Zerg constantly build roaches, build units over and over, and then you just get this awesome anti-roach force with soon to be +3, like he should be getting +3 with his next 250 gas. And then you're gonna have archons, you're gonna have immortals, you're gonna have charge zealots with +3 attack. Like immortals will be doing 65 damage to the roaches. That's like 3-shotting roaches just about. And then with the zealots are just gonna tank all the damage. And then you can have storm, which helps. And also you would have, obviously you'd have the robotics for the observer, so burrow won't screw you over. So here we go, we see it again, and these zealots should get picked up. There they go, and it just goes away, and now you can warp in down here, and I will say, I will actually go back, I think I kind of neglected that, to say that you are going to try to want a time to have about 6 gateways up when the first warp prism reaches the other base, so it's like while the robotics, just before the robotics facility finishes, you're going to want to add on another 3 or 4 gateways, because you want to be able to be warping in 6 or so zealots. And so now at this point, yeah, and also I will say that, like, the other good thing is if for some reason your 5 zealots do get killed off, like just straight out by the Zerg, if you have your timings correctly and the Zerg for some reason says, hey, he 2-gate zealot rushed me, that means he won't have anything at home, which is a little bit of risk, I will say. They can just, and if he does decide to go halfway across the map, you have the warp prisms to just straight up, it's like, he's in the middle map, warp prism in his base, then you're just forcing him to decide on a base race, and most people will not decide in favor of a base race, because I'm sure you know base racing isn't fun. And then if it is on this map, you can just warp in sentries and force field continuously, especially because you're only spending gas on immortals and tech, which you can easily cancel if you're going to be losing the game. So now we do have a June after doing yeah, the warp prism stuff. Like, generally you want to stop around like once the Twilight Council finishes, because around then the Zerg will most likely not be taking much damage and you need to start building up your army. So this base has been killed once already, and then June will go straight up and kill it, which I think is just a good idea. You want to be able, like, around this point you want to just make sure that the Zerg's on 2 bases, keep him nice and contained, and then you can take your own 3rd base at will. I would say that just on this game and seeing like what has happened, I would say that what I would do is I would take a 3rd base a little bit quicker, just because. And then also, I will say that you don't want to actually be making charge zealots the entire time. If you do know that he is sticking on roaches, you can add in stalkers and get blink. But it's up until around you get start thinking for your 3rd, you want to keep making the zealots. And so now here we have the engagement. There's Storm, which is awesome. There's feedbacks for the Queens or Infestors if they are going the Zealot Infest or Zergling Infestor, excuse me. And I will say that this was a little bit not the best on Ajun's part. He has less stuff than he should, I would say, just because he does not do the best job in making probes in general. So, and also he should have, if you're moving out and you know the guy's roaches, make sure that you get an observer. I've lost so many games just in general because I didn't have another observer. It's not a fun prospect. Don't lose because you don't have an observer. So I will say, like, you can look at the worker count. Like, this isn't because necessarily that many drones have been killed. It's only about 11. So, like, not that many were really killed. It's just that so many units were forced at such awkward times for the Zerg that he never really got a proper like time to just drone and stay chill. And at the time that would come up, like around the Templar Archives finishing, then you're going to be wanting to like push out across the map so that they're yet again still making units. So you're forcing the Zerg to make units, and you're killing off low amounts in small quantities constantly with units that directly counter what can be out at that time. And so for some reason at this point in the game, the Zerg is not dead, and you can actually just easily tech to anything. You can get Blink. I would say that Blink should have been started researching already, and you could have Storm if you want, or you can just straight up go to Colossus and either add on a 2nd Robotics Bay and go double Robo on 3 bases, because unless you somehow seriously screw something up, your 3rd base shouldn't be in immediate danger, unless the Zerg is doing very heavy counterattack style. Which, in that case, you can then just counter yourself. And also the other great thing about this, in case you haven't noticed, is that you don't have to build a proxy pylon since you already have 2 warp prisms out. Assuming, of course, that they stayed alive during the course of the game, which protect your warp prisms. You need the robotics time to make immortals. Just cause if you don't have enough immortals, you can be just straight up killed by a roach counterattack. So that's not too fun in general if that would happen. So I will just go over this again, just relative build order things, as we see this game will be coming to a close, as Ajun is actually being chased away a little bit, but we can see that he is firmly in the lead. It's almost a double the worker count. So it's essentially Forge Expand, first gas before cannon or 2nd gateway, then 2 gateways. You want to, if you can, like if this build is best on Curse-Off time just because you can wall off fairly simply, is you want the 2 gateways, you get the 2nd gateway before you get the cannon, all your chrono boost on the +1 weapons, like absolutely all of it. So in your 3 or 5 zealots, it's whichever you prefer. I find 5 is better, as 5 is oftentimes greater than 3. Excuse me while I cough, hopefully not directly in the mic. Is that you want to be leaving your base with 5 zealots at about 6 minutes, or 6:30 at the latest. And while second and third zealot are being built, that's when your cyber core goes up. Robotics immediately after cyber core goes up, while robotics is being built, second gas. Then next 100 gas after robotics has been built, that is time for I can't speak. That is time for Twilight Council, and then your next 200 gas is for charge. Next 200 gas after that is for +2. At that point, you get your second 2 gases. Meanwhile, while you get your second gas while the robotics is being built, you add on 3 or 4 gateways to go up to at least 6, and your warp prism should be out by 8:30, and it should be by the Zerg's base at about 9 minutes. And then as soon as and then after you get your +2 weapons, Twilight Council should go down with the next 200 gas while constantly producing immortals. After that's finished, that's generally a good time to stop making or stop doing the zealot harass. Although the situation really does vary from really game to game, because could be that it got shut down hardcore, or it's that you did enough damage that there's really no point, and like you're in such a huge lead that you can stop doing it without worrying. And then at about 4 immortals and +3 weapons, which +3 weapons, obviously as soon as +2 weapons finishes, that's when you want to be getting it. Once +3 is done, you should have about 3 or 4 immortals, move out across the map, and think about your third. That is the essential build, or, yeah, it's not a build order per se, like there aren't any strong numbers defined, it's more just a relative build. Like you do this in this general order, so I guess that could be called the build order. But essentially, if you have Misappointment, we'll lay it out to you. You get units that counted the units that Zerg most likely has at that particular time, at awkward times for Zerg, based on the metagame of what Zerg does versus Forge Expand, and then you keep constant aggression, so that Zerg has constant unit production. Meanwhile, you get ahead with workers and upgrades and tech in general. So it's really just abusing Zerg timings for the most part, and it will just crumble most Zergs who have not seen this before, as I do think this is still fairly rare. So we will see this game just about finish up. +3 immortals. Oh, he did get shields. Yeah, shields. If you are gonna stick on Immortal Archon, shields is probably the most logical choice to get instead of armor. If you're gonna go up to Colossus, I would say get armor, because then you're probably going more Stalker Colossus ball. But really, anything does work. It's, for the most part, it is personal preference, and we will be seeing the GG any moment, as my friend Candy Hunters, who this was done to, unfortunately had no idea what was coming up, and therefore died, being that is just such a funky, weird build. So, I do hope that you enjoy this, and okay. That's kind of odd. He doesn't have the warp prism here, but yeah, you should be using your warp prisms. Oh, actually, both of his warp prisms did die. You want to be keeping your warp prisms alive as much as you can, simply because warp prisms are good. And especially, like, I will say once again, if you didn't catch this at the beginning of the video, this was on the first patch, or the last patch, 1.3, before 1.4 hit. So it is even better, being that the warp prisms have 60 more shields. So I do hope that you got ideas from this, or just enjoyed this different style of Protoss, especially like just instead of a super passive style, and then into just a big burst of aggression, like is sort of the classic like big gateway pushes from Forge Expand. This is just constant aggression just over time. And so yeah, that about wraps it up. I hope you all enjoyed this, and I'll see you all next time.